In this video, we're going to talk about printing, and we've got a program here. I've got my program name and my end program. Implicit none is something that all modern Fortran programs probably should have. What it says is, if your program variables start with I, J, K, and L, don't assume they are integers. In the older Fortran, when you created a variable with a name I, J, K, and L, it was assumed that you had an integer. Well, that's no longer the case, so implicit none says, don't make that guess. Explicitly, we're going to define the variables. I've got an integer num, a real pi, and I've given those values. I've got a character string with a length of 20, called it X, and said this is data. And here I've printed 3 lines. The asterisk after the word print says use the default formatting. Then a comma, and then you put separated by commas what you want. Since I wanted a string, I put in quotes, this is a string. The second line, this is an integer. Again, the asterisk at the left says use the default formatting. And then I've got a comma and num, separating those two. Use the comma to separate values. Then I've got this is real, comma, pi, again with the default formatting. When I run this, I can see I have that output. This is a string. Then this is an integer and the 42. And notice the 42 is quite a ways away. It is using a default formatting for an integer and reserving that much space. This is real and then pi, and it's showing pi 3.14159.012. Well, when I defined it, I didn't put the 012. What's happening here is the way floating point or real numbers are stored. There is a rounding error because of the way they're stored, and displaying it here, it's showing that rounding error. We'll see later on how to get rid of that rounding error. Well, those are unformatted, and I've got one more that's not formatted, where I'm just printing the variable X and num. And I see it prints the variable and then the space for 42, but it's farther out than this is an integer. That's because I defined that variable as 20 spaces, so it is including the blank space to round it out to the 20 spaces. We can format our printing. We've got some format specifiers, and the A is for a string, I for an integer, F for a float or real. E is for a real using scientific notation, where you have something like 1.3 times 10 to the third power, 1.3 e to the plus 10. Logical, white space, and if I uncomment those, what I have first is a format specifier, A18, saying the first thing to print is going to be a string, and it's going to be 18 spaces reserved for it, even if the string is less than 18 spaces. Then I5 says a number, so I've got my string, a comma, and the number. Then I've got 18 spaces for this is real, and F8.2, F saying it's a real number, a floating point number. 8 says reserve 8 spaces. The dot 2 says 2 spaces to the right of the decimal. The next one, again, 18 spaces for the string. Pi gets 8.3 this time, 3 decimal places. And again, the integer 5. And the last one, we've got the variable x, again, 18 spaces, and same for size for pi and the num. We see that this is a number. We've got the 18 spaces, and it's right aligning the string. That is a default. Then only 5 spaces for the 42. This is real, it right aligned as well. It was shorter than 8 spaces for the 3.14. So you've got the 2 spaces to the right of the decimal, the 3. So that's 4 spaces. And then there are 4 spaces after the L in real. The next line, these are numbers, and we've got your floating point number displaying now with 3 decimal places. And so you've got 3.142. But when I defined it, I said 3.14159. Why is it 2 here? Well, I said 3 decimal places. The next digit after the 141 is 5. Any number greater than 5, it rounds up. If that had been a number less than 5, such as when I displayed with 2 decimal places, the next number was a 1, it rounds down. Now, it doesn't actually change the value of the variable. It only changes the way it's being displayed. And then our last one has our variable x and such. And notice it is left justified. Well, it's left justified because of the size. It needs 20 spaces for displaying, and I've only given it 18, and so it shifted everything all the way back to the left. If I were to give it 25 spaces, you see that it shifts it over to the right. So we can control the way our output looks by formatting. And we always want to be careful on our formatting to make our output as readable as possible. So here are the basics of formatting output. And it will become very important when we start building tables. And so we've got columns of numbers and strings. If you're enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe.